anyone looking at these new images and video, that the FBI is offering a reward of up to $50,000 for information leading to the recovery of Nancy Guthrie and or the arrest and conviction of anyone involved in her disappearance. New images released today, the FBI shows an armed individual appearing to have tampered with the camera at Nancy Guthrie's front door the morning of her disappearance. The FBI seeks information that will lead to the identity of this individual, and they have now updated her missing poster with not only her face, but the images that we now have of this person approaching her front door at the same timeline that she went missing from that home. Morgan, obviously all of this can certainly help. We hope it brings in tips, and we hope it brings them in fast.
And last point, Sandra, I would make that the more I look at this, the more I'm from an investigative standpoint, this is a local person. And so as you start thinking about the reward and what that reward can do, there's somebody in the Tucson area that's, if you want to make a quick $50,000, this is how to do it. Somebody in the viewing area between the stations in Tucson, they have a good idea who this person is. The fact that there's not 2 or 3 there and just a solo operator, again, you can't tell. It looks solo operator. Somebody could be driving the car, but somebody has knowledge of this crime. Somebody knows, and it's just overcoming that. That's the way most cases get done, especially cases like this. It's data combined with potentially somebody flipping and saying, hey, I'll either do it because it's the right thing to do, or I'll do it for the money. Either way, as a detective, I don't care. Just give me the information. Let's make an arrest.
All right, Morgan, thank you for your expertise. Really appreciate it.
You bet.
All right, now's the time to call in either of those tip lines. If you see anything that makes you think you might know who this is, let's bring in our former FBI investigator, Bill Daly, is joining us now. Bill, you've had a chance to take in all of this since we last spoke. What strikes you right now?
Well, it's interesting. And following up what both you and John were speaking about a few minutes ago was that, there is a difference in the way images are captured. You can do light amplification. And many times we see that with military operations where you're seeing things at nighttime, sometimes referred to as starlight scopes. Certainly a lot of that technology people might be familiar with, who are hunters, et cetera. This is infrared, as John Bull pointed out, and in these cameras. So a lot of the reflections we're seeing do come from, let's say, red light that lights up. People can't see it from their eye, but it's illuminating that porch area, and it's bouncing off different things to provide that illumination. So one thing I did look at, it didn't appear that the porch light was on. If it is, it's a very low, a low wattage bulb, and is not interfering with these images, or it doesn't seem to be kind of maybe a burst of light you might see. And the other thing interesting is that I think based upon all the things that are in that porch area, we'll be able to soon be able to even colorize this picture. And I say this not to be too dramatic about it, but we've often seen old movies that are colorized. We've seen now AI enhancements of old images online that can be enhanced. And by using some known colors in that area, known colors of the brick, known colors of the flooring, you can start to put together a colorized picture. Sometimes that has more of an impact to people, especially if they start seeing a jacket that may be of a certain color, or shoes of a certain color, a ski mask of a certain color. That certainly can draw some attention to it. And the other thing I did point out is I've noticed, actually, as I was looking more closely at the images, and I'm looking at a image online of an image of a digital image. So sometimes you have some degradation of kind of the quality, but it did appear in one of those images. And I think, Sandra, you pointed out, it appears that this person, in my view, has a mustache or some growth over his upper lip. So as they say, able to kind of peel some of this back, as some of your other guests and I talked about, is you'll be able to put together more of a composite picture. It also does tie into, and John, you mentioned earlier, is that when people like Mengione and other criminals are caught, sometimes they had to take that mask off. You can't roll into a a drive-through fast food or to a gas station wearing a ski mask. I think people would remember that one. But the fact that you now can kind of peel this back, you can kind of start to see who the person is. They can start looking for someone who matches this general description, who may have come in or out of the area, may have been in the area doing some reconnaissance. So this by itself is extremely helpful. I am sure this will now cascade, if not from people who know who this person is, there will be other images that can be gleaned by knowing this known image that they're looking for now.
So, Bill, from your expertise in infrared, what do you make of the flash that we see coming from his mouth? Is that a flashlight he could be holding in his mouth? Because it seems to disappear in that image that we've got up on the screen now with his mouth closed. There's no evidence of any kind of a flashlight in his mouth. Or could it be that he's got some sort of metal appliance in his mouth that's reflecting that IR so brightly?
Okay.
Yeah, John, that's exactly
said,
what
okay,
I
I
was
wanna
thinking. I said,
finish lining this
did
up.
he have a flashlight in his mouth? I didn't see that in the other images. That appeared like there was anything in his mouth at that time. Sometimes some from his work around at home might put a little flashlight on the mouth if we're trying to operate something or get into a dark place, so we can use both hands. Yeah, it doesn't work sometimes, but
No.
But it's very possible. On the other hand, there is some qualities of IR that can reflect off of organic matter or shiny things, teeth, wet mouth, those type of things. I think your point about maybe braces or something, could play into it, but I think it is more of this reflection of the IR and it bouncing back as opposed to of an illumination per se.
Right. So I was wondering if it is bouncing back off of something in his mouth that's more than his teeth. That could be a potential identifier.
It could very well be as well.
Hey,
exactly.
Bill, this photo in particular, a lot of people are obviously noticing the eyebrows. One could make the case they look manicured, groomed. I don't know. Tell us what you take away from that. But all three out of the four still images, you can clearly see. Maybe that's zoomed in just a little bit too far, but in all three still images, you can clearly see his eyebrows.
Yeah, and as we know from in the case in New York with Mangione, one of the things people pointed out were and still reference are his demonstrative eyebrows. So that I think Sandra's a good point. That might be something as you start to kind of peel back that ski mask. If you have that, perhaps there's some facial hair involved over the mouth, the stature, the size, the build, the gait. All those things go into somebody knows who this person is, and the fact of drawing their attention to it through the public media like we're talking about now. I'm sure they'll be putting out further online announcements and images of this. I think we'll all go to play with even maybe calling in the reward. I mean, I think the reward is something that if people now think they may know who this person is, if they're not directly involved with them, they may decide that now is the time to make that call to 1-800-CALL-FBI.
All right. So, Bill, as far as the FBI now takes these images, takes these videos, what do you believe is next as far as how they can improve these images? So
I'll be right there, please.
Better get an understanding of who this is, and they can ultimately be led to the suspect.
Yeah, and certainly I'd like to just kind of call out the fact of this work and working with the private sector and trying to glean out this data from, again, probably terabytes of data that's out there that may be unallocated or assigned because we realized that this camera didn't have a subscription to it, so this data wasn't kind of being recorded for them per se. I think a fantastic job in what's been done so far. I think moving forward, though, I think it is kind of putting more of a description around this person, as we just talked about, kind of the height of the person, the perhaps weight of the person, maybe some of those other facial features we're talking about here, perhaps the colorization of this image to be able to get a color of the jacket and the shoes and the pants. All those things would be extremely helpful as you